Let's go.
Wednesday afternoons.
Absolutely fit. I mean, when you get two teams, and let's take the Premier League, whatever the difference in ability levels, they're all pretty elite footballers, elite athletes. They have to be at that level. And you see one team and the other team, and they're sort of grinding each other down because they cancel each other out in so many cases that a defence will cancel out the other team's attack and vice versa. So they've got to come up with fresh ideas, fresh strategies. How do we get a 1% improvement? Is it in our fitness? Is it what the players, how their diets, how they're nourished, the fitness, all sorts of things come into this great game to try and just get a small percentage advantage over the opposition.
Yeah.
So it's a great thinking person's game as well. But it's a tough game, which is why for the most part, over 90 minutes or 95 minutes, whatever, you don't often see that many goals. Okay, we get the exception. You might see 5 or 6 goals being scored. But generally, you're looking at 1-0, 2-1, 3-2 or whatever. You don't get too many goals, and it is the scarcity of the goals that makes them so exciting. It's their very scarcity relatively that makes the game what it is. So it's a game of tactics, and I commend anybody to go along if they don't watch football and just give it a go, just to see what it's like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now I've got 2 topics. One of them is related to what you've just said, so I'm going to give you credit for that because that was a very brilliant point that you brought out. And then the other one is Manchester City. We'll come back to that. Now, you said, it's something that you said is very interesting. And I looked at it. I'll tell you what it is in a minute. So that's good credit to you. But I looked at it, and I looked at it in terms of another sports, because you compared it to chess. And I'm comparing it to the game of darts.
Right.
And there was this kid called Luke Littler. That's just sensational in the game. And he's coming to the game. He's not like the old timers. He just does what he does. You know, it's a game of that. I'm gonna play that. You know, I'm gonna try to aim and get as much point as I can to defeat the opponent. But I think the other ones that were before him, credit to them. They must have gotten into the same sort of norm of, you know, we've got to do it this way, we've got to do it that way, we've got to, you know, you've got to stand in this position, you've got to do this, or you've got to aim at this position. But when you look at Luke Littler, I don't know if you've seen any of his games.
Yes, I have.
He goes like that, you know, it's just, you know, he's doing his thing.
Yeah.
And when I relate it to football, and when Leicester won, the Premier League, and what Nottingham Forest is doing now, I'm thinking these are teams that decided, you know what, it's a game of football, right? It's a game of football. We don't have the finances of the bigger clubs, right? Like Chelsea and Arsenal and whatever. What we're just going to do is play with what we've got and just play this game, and they've done it beautifully, you know. So, but there are teams like Arsenal, and they've got all these big players, and they're buying these players, and they're selling these players, and they're doing all this. Do you think that could be a distraction, you know, from then concentrating? Because Nottingham Forest, what they've just done is concentrate on it. We're the underdogs, but you know what, we're just going to play. You know, we're going to play against these big boys, and we're not going to be afraid of them. We're not going to look them in the eye. We're just going to kick the ball. You know. Well, then there's all these teams, and they were there, and Leicester came and won it. So Chelsea was there, Manchester United was there, Arsenal was there, Man City was there, and then, you know, Leicester came from nowhere, won it.
They did. Yeah.
And then Nottingham Forest is at the verge of doing the same thing. You know, and all these teams are still there. Still, you know, we're going to sell this player, we're going to buy this player, we're going to do this with. I'm not saying it makes it all interesting, the game, but do you think there could be a distraction there where these guys are just, you know, getting too consumed with the modalities of who's going where, what's going this, or what's doing
Yeah.
that. Do you think that could be a problem, a distraction?
Yeah, I do. I think in many ways, the game, in some respects, has been made overcomplicated, which is probably
Right.
what we're saying. Maybe going back to basics. And you notice, for example, nowadays when they bring a substitute on, he or she will go to the touchline with one of the trainers or the manager, usually one of the coaches, and he'll have his iPad, and there'll be, before he can get on the pitch, he'll be saying, talking to him, often covering the mouth, which always makes me smile, really, because who's going to read what they're saying, lip read? But they're given all these instructions, and they're probably saying, look, this opponent, he'll come down the wing, always force him on the outside, or whatever they say. And I sometimes think, I wonder, in the reality of the moment of, playing and being confronted by a winger coming at you with the ball, I'm not sure. Yeah, you can sometimes affect which way he may go, but ultimately the initiative is with that attacker. And I do wonder how much the substitute going onto the pitch really takes in, indeed the team itself, before they go out. No doubt they're given all these instructions about certain of the opponents, the particular opponent you may be faced with on that day. And it does seem to overcomplicate it sometimes. You just want to feel that, you want to get, as a player, you just want to get on the pitch and you want to play this lovely game. It's a great game to play, football.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to do. And really, so much of it, great players, I think, play football instinctively like they would any sport. You said about Luke Littler, and he does that. He's what is he, 17, I think, and he became well known a year ago when he was 16, and he throws the darts with freedom. It's not, as I suppose most of them do in many respects, but his personality is such that he just goes out and does it, which is why he won the World Championship over Christmas, didn't he? And an incredible achievement, and you just get a feeling maybe he's going to be doing that for a few years to come. But again, it is all about that back to basics approach, not so much for him because he's just doing it naturally as it comes to him, but the rest of the darts world might see this, as you said, as a more basic, fundamental approach to the game of darts. You're throwing these arrows into this dartboard, trying to get them into a certain place. Now, I'm sure some darts players have their own, of course you have your own techniques, and especially as it's a game where you can get what they call, I think it's called the yips, and snooker as well, whereby there have been very good darts players, professionals, who over the years, they sometimes develop the yips where they don't quite let the dart go at the right moment, and it can completely destroy their game. Now, I think most players who do experience that, and I don't think many do, but they do play their way through it for the most part. And I know there was a snooker player once who eventually retired a few years ago because he couldn't get over his inability to keep the cue straight. He sort of acquired a wobble with it, and he could never really get rid of it. It was like a sort of a nervous tick almost in his arm. So yeah, I mean that's something they have to contend with. So just being natural, playing the game naturally, is possibly better. And you do sometimes read of teams that win the championships, the leagues, and all the rest of it, the Premier League. And sometimes you hear when the players are interviewed afterwards, they might say, "Yeah," because the interviewer says, "Well, what did the manager say to you all before you went out?" And I say, "Well, he just said, go out there, lads, and enjoy the game." Now, you don't often hear that so much nowadays like you used to, because I think they're given very specific areas on the pitch to work in and specific tasks to do, which is fair enough, because when you're matching two teams of elite ability and you've got it's a war of attrition trying to wear down the opposition. And the sheer quality, the standard of players, in the Premier League, for example, it's a tough old game. I mean, we see it and we don't really fully appreciate just what a physically tough and mentally tough game it is to play. So, yeah, in a way, players just want to go out and enjoy it. I always remember, actually, you may remember Nigel Clough. Now, he was the son of Brian Clough, the famous manager. He managed Forest, I think, when they won the European Cup, actually, and Derby, and he managed Brighton. Him and his number two, Peter Taylor, I think his name was. And Brian Clough, he died some years ago now, but his son Nigel played for Liverpool, and I think even now he might still be managing a club in one of the lower leagues.
Yeah.
I think he might well be, certainly has been. But I remember some years ago when he retired, I think he must have written some sort of autobiography, but something he said there was that he said, what I found is being a professional footballer, certainly at the top level when he was with Liverpool and things, he said it's not the same as going out on a pitch with your mates and playing a football match, perhaps on a Sunday afternoon somewhere or whatever. He said it's brilliant, it gets into your blood and you want to do it. He said when it's your job, he said it's different. He said it really is your job, and the pressures, the physical pressures on your body, and the psychological pressures, you can be shouted at, told off by your manager or by other teammates. And I know when I used to play a few years ago, you always got 2 or 3 players on the pitch who were very happy about bawling a teammate out if they so much as made a mistake, but that's part of it. I mean, some people are like that, some captains are like that. But he always said playing was not the great experience that he has when he plays it for fun. And I'm sure, now they get paid fabulous sums of money, the top players, so that is one aspect of it. But yeah, it's an interesting sideline as to what he thought about being a professional player.
Absolutely. All right, so this is all we've got time for.
Can't believe that, really.
I know, it goes so fast, doesn't it? Wow.
We quit. Yeah.
I know. So we've had a great show. So this is all we've got time for, viewers. I've been Emmy Hikins, and he calls me bruv.
And I've been Trevor Gear, and I call him Cuz.
Yeah.
And this has been the Football Referee. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
So join us again. Join us again, same time next week, where we'll bring you another interesting topics. It's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Safero and the ladies, Dr. Gladys and Phantom and Rose. We all have a lovely show every weekday, so join us for a lovely show.
Say hello to Phantom.